One fast, one day, and Islam says it wipes out an entire year of sins. Not Ramadan, not a pilgrimage, a single voluntary fast in a month most Muslims barely think about. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said that fasting the day of Ashura, he hoped Allah would expiate thereby for the year that came before it. That is recorded in Sahih Muslim, hadith 1162. Agreed upon as authentic by al-Bukhari and Muslim both. One day, the sins of 12 months erased by Allah's mercy. But this reward does not exist without a reason, and the reason goes back further than most Muslims realize. It goes back to a conversation the Prophet had when he first arrived in Medina, a conversation that changed how Muslims would worship for the rest of time. This is the story of the day of Ashura and why it matters more than almost any other day in the Islamic year. Before we get to that conversation, you need to understand what Muharram actually is. Muharram is the first month of the Islamic calendar. It is also one of the 4 sacred months Allah designated in the Quran, months in which fighting was prohibited and worship was amplified. But Muharram has something that none of the other sacred months have. The Prophet, peace be upon him, called it by a name no other month carries. He called it the month of Allah, not the month of the believers, not a blessed month, the month of Allah. The scholars noted that when something is attributed to Allah specifically, it signals extraordinary honor. The Kaaba is the house of Allah. The she-camel in the story of Thamud was called the she-camel of Allah, and Muharram is called the month of Allah. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said that the best fasting after Ramadan is fasting in the sacred month of Allah, al-Muharram. That is, in Sahih Muslim 1163. Best fasting after Ramadan. Not after the 10 days of Dhul Hijjah, not after Shaban. After Ramadan, the next best voluntary fasting is in this month. And within this month, one day rises above the rest. Now this is Yusuf. He has just left Mecca for the last time. The year is 622 CE. The Prophet and his companions have made the Hijrah, the migration to Medina, leaving behind everything they built, everything they knew, everything they owned, homes they had lived in for decades, family members who had turned against them, a city that had once been theirs and was no longer safe. They arrived in Medina with almost nothing, among people they were still learning to trust, building a community from the ground up. And within the first days of arriving, the Prophet noticed something he had not expected. The Jewish community of Medina were fasting, an entire community, on a specific day in the month of Muharram, observing a voluntary fast with visible seriousness. He asked them about it. "What is this day you are fasting?" They told him, "This is a great day. On this day, Allah saved Musa and the children of Israel from their enemy. Pharaoh had enslaved them for generations. He had killed their sons. He had taken everything from them. And when Musa led them out of Egypt, Pharaoh gathered his entire army and chased them to the edge of the sea. They were cornered. There was water in front of them and an army behind them and nowhere left to go. And then Allah parted the water. They walked through on dry ground. The walls of the sea stood on either side of them. Pharaoh followed with his army, and the sea closed behind him. Every soldier drowned. The people who had enslaved Bani Israel for generations, gone in a single moment. Musa fasted that day as an act of gratitude to Allah, not because it was obligatory, because he was overwhelmed with thankfulness, and the Jewish community in Medina continued that practice in his memory. The Prophet, peace be upon him, listened to all of this. And then he said something that defines this day for every Muslim until the end of time. He said, "We are more worthy and closer to Musa than you." He fasted that day immediately, and he commanded the Muslims to fast it. That exchange is recorded in Sahih al-Bukhari 2004 and Sahih Muslim 1130. Authenticity agreed upon by both. Pay attention to what just happened, because most people miss it. The Prophet did not discover Ashura. He did not invent it. He arrived in a city and found a community already honoring a day that commemorated the salvation of a prophet of Allah. And he said, "We have more right to that prophet than you do. Musa is our prophet too. Ibrahim is our prophet. All the prophets of Allah are the prophets of Islam. And so every miracle Allah granted them, every day He delivered them, belongs to us as well." The day of Ashura is the day Allah saved a prophet from the mightiest ruler on earth. It is the day an entire enslaved people walked out of their chains through a parted sea. And Musa fasted it, not because he was commanded to, but because he was grateful. That gratitude is what we are inheriting when we fast this day. Now here is the part that changes how you think about Ashura. When the Prophet gave the command to fast, some companions asked, "We will be imitating the Jews in fasting this day." The Prophet's response was immediate. He said, "Next year, if Allah wills, we will fast the 9th alongside the 10th. He wanted to add a day, not to amplify the reward, to distinguish the Muslim practice. The Jews fasted the 10th alone. Muslims would fast the 9th and the 10th together, or the 10th and the 11th. The Prophet never wanted Muslims to simply mirror another community's worship. He wanted something distinctly ours. He did not live to see the following year, but he expressed that intention clearly enough that the scholars recorded it and acted upon it. So the Sunnah of Ashura is 2 days. The 9th and the 10th of Muharram fasted together. And if a person can only fast one day, the 10th is the primary act. And fasting that one day, according to Sahih Muslim 1162, earns the hope of an entire year's worth of minor sins being erased. If you are finding this useful, hit subscribe. This channel covers Islamic topics and world religion content every week. Think about what that means for a moment. The year you just lived. Every small sin you accumulated between last Muharram and this one, every shortcoming, every moment of negligence, every act that fell below what it should have been. One fast, and Allah, by His mercy, considers wiping the slate. Ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with him, reported that he never saw the Prophet more concerned about observing a fast than on the day of Ashura, more concerned than any other voluntary fast. This day mattered to him in a way that showed. The scholars explained why. Because the reward is disproportionate to the act. One day of fasting erasing a year of sins is not about the difficulty of the fast. It is entirely about Allah's mercy. He chose this day, with this history, with this connection to Musa and gratitude and salvation, and placed a reward on it that reflects who He is, generous beyond any measurement. Ashura 2026 falls on approximately the 25th of June. The 9th of Muharram, called Tasu'a, falls the day before, on the 24th. 2 days, 2 voluntary fasts, the 9th and the 10th together, following the intention the Prophet expressed in his final year. Think about the weight of what you are being offered. Musa stood at the edge of a sea with nowhere to go, an army of Pharaoh behind him, and water in front of him. And he raised his staff, not because he knew exactly what would happen, but because he trusted the one who sent him. And Allah opened the sea for him. That is the event this day commemorates. Not a general blessing, a specific, recorded, impossible deliverance that changed the course of human history. And fasting the day of that deliverance, as an act of gratitude, the way Musa himself did, earns the hope of an entire year's worth of sins being erased. That is the chain. That is why this reward exists. It is not arbitrary. It connects all the way back to a prophet standing at the edge of water, grateful enough to fast the day Allah saved him. Nobody told most Muslims about it. Not because it is hidden. It is in Sahih Bukhari. It is in Sahih Muslim. It has been recorded and verified and passed down for 14 centuries. It is available. It is just not talked about the way Ramadan is talked about, or Eid, or the 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. But the door is open. It opens once a year, in Muharram, on the 10th, and in 2026, it opened this week. Fast the 9th, fast the 10th, and ask Allah by His mercy to accept it. You still have time.